Warhammer is a game with a rich history of rules that sometimes suck, okay, a lot of the times they suck, and a plethora of miniatures that can appeal to whatever catches your fancy because you can't just have one army. No longer are the days of goofy yet charming miniatures a thing, unfortunately. Nowadays we have miniatures that mirror the grimdark aspect that we all know and love, but the one thing that has unfortunately changed for the worse is the price of miniatures. No longer are the days of $30 for a box of 10 Space Marines a thing, or a Star Collecting box not costing a kidney. So with Christmas having passed and some of us having slightly heavier wallets, it's time to change that. And by that, I mean I'm gonna help you burn your wallet in the least painful way possible if you plan on buying that new army you've been eyeing for the last year, or if you just want to start Warhammer. But welcome back everyone, it's me the Warhammer complaining guy, Revan/Handy, destroyer of wallets, and maker of terrible financial decisions. Also, if I sound a bit raspy and monotone throughout the video, that's because I'm still kind of recovering from the couve, and also using my normal showman voice kinda hurts. And also just because I know some of you are going to be smartasses and say get a 3D printer, but that's not what this video is about. So, how does one get into Warhammer for cheap? Well, let's talk about it. The first most obvious answer is go to your local game store that isn't a Games Workshop. More often than not, if your local game store carries Warhammer, it'll usually sell for much cheaper. For example, when the Knight Lancer first came out, I got it from my local game store for $170, as opposed to the $200 plus tax you would need to spend at a Games Workshop. It's honestly better for you to buy from your local game store because the more you buy, the more Warhammer they'll carry. Your LGS also carries more paint brands, so Citadel paints are not your only option now. Also, sometimes your local game store might have a membership program where if you sign up for X amount of dollars, you get perks like 10 to 20% discounts, buy one get one free after you spend a certain amount of money, or a point system where the more you spend, the more store credit you get. The store credit one was what my old local game store was like, and my god, it was so nice to save up so many points to get nearly a 70% discount on miniatures. The reason I bring this up as the first cheapest way to get into Warhammer is because having a local game store is also incredibly healthy for the state of your Warhammer community, because your LGS will usually have tables to play Warhammer and other tabletop games. These tables will also usually have terrain for you to use, because spending over $600 for your own terrain you have to lug around on top of your $1,000 painted army is not very fun, which will be the subject of a future video. Having an LGS also leads to the next way to get Warhammer for cheap, which is trading and selling your used miniatures. For those of us that are lucky enough to have a local game store, those stores will sometimes have a used miniature case, a Discord server, or a store swap meet a few times a year. I've been lucky enough for the stores that I've been to that they have all three of these. If you've ever been to a game store that isn't a GW store that carries Warhammer, you might just have seen a display case like these right here, or just ones they built themselves, absolutely filled to the brim with used miniatures. This is because, as much as some idiots on the internet would like you to believe, Warhammer minis lose their value as soon as you open the box, assemble, or paint them. But the painting part depends on how well they're painted. This is because a lot of us are very particular about our miniatures, and sometimes people may not be as thorough as we are when it comes to things like cleaning up mold lines, sanding down casting gates, building the mini properly, or just using the proper amounts of glue, or just using too much glue. All of these things drive down the value of a miniature, which is why if a miniature is already assembled or it's not new in box, its value goes down. This is why used minis at your game store are always going to be much cheaper than brand new miniatures, and you're also still helping them out when you buy used miniatures. For example, when I went to the Game Exchange when I stayed in Bloomington a few months ago, they had a huge used miniature section filled to the brim with used miniatures from every single faction, both Sigmar and 40k. More surprisingly was all the new miniatures and also hard to find miniatures that were already in the used miniature bins. I found so much cool stuff there, but the only thing I wanted was these suppressors that I got for $30, and also because I had just recently purchased a rare model train at the time, so yeah, wallet was a bit light. But mostly because I'm not paying over $160 or however much the box they come in goes for now, since I don't need any more intercessors of any given kind. Those stores may also have a Discord server, and in that Discord server you can also buy, sell, or trade other people for miniatures at a significantly reduced price. This is because they either need the money urgently, or they know that minis lose their value when they're not mint, or that we're all cheap bastards in a hobby that just keeps getting more expensive with every year that passes. I myself have bought and sold multiple miniatures that I didn't want anymore on my store Discord server because it's honestly way faster than selling them on the internet. This also helps you meet players you probably never interacted with, so you can make new friends unless you rip them off. please don't do that. If you get really lucky though, sometimes your local game stores will have swap meets a few times a year, where you can also buy, sell, and trade some of the miniatures you no longer want. This is honestly a really good time to get some used miniatures, because this is when people really want to get rid of some of their old stuff, so it just means you can sometimes barter if you buy enough stuff. But that's everything I can think of for my support your local game store section of the video. So it's about that time again. That's right, it's time for some audience interaction to help boost it to the almighty YouTube algorithm. So maybe drop a like and subscribe please, because your support and engagement for this elaborate shitpost of a channel only helps it grow to reach more Warhammer and Battletech fans. Plus, I like seeing everyone's painted miniatures, so I also have a Discord server if you care about that. Also, this is just a reminder, but don't forget to go to the community tab and vote for which model destroys my wallet this year, because I hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers and so far it looks like the Gundam is winning. But let me know in the comments down below, how do you get Warhammer for cheap? Do you support your friendly local game store? Do you go to swap meets? Or do you just watch eBay like a vulture? But if you don't want to share them, then
alright then, keep your secrets.
the next most obvious way to afford Warhammer as cheaply as possible is the internet. The most obvious first one I'm going to mention is eBay, your one-stop shop for pretty much anything Warhammer related, including those funny listings of me professional mini painter. eBay is honestly a great source of cheap miniatures unless it's an iconic out of production miniature or a Warhammer store exclusive miniature. If you're vigilant enough, you can also get some of the Warhammer Plus exclusive miniatures for a normal miniatures retail price like Umbro 6, or just an exclusive mini like Carl Weathers / Sergeant Johnson. Not only are there single miniatures, but also sometimes entire armies that people no longer want, but unfortunately these are usually always way overvalued, so generally just avoid buying fully painted armies off of eBay. Another more useful tip is if a new edition has just started for either 40k or Sigmar, instead of spending $250 to $300 on the new starter box for some minis you may not really want, just wait about 1 to 2 months after the start of the new edition. This is because around that time you'll start to see the halves of the box someone didn't want on average for about $80 to $100, because the new edition's minis are always going to be pushed to fit. This also works too for any mid-edition combo boxes they might release that has 2 armies in it, but more importantly, if you want to start a new army, this is how you get half an army for way less than if you were to buy them individually. Next is using Facebook Marketplace, although I would generally be more cautious about this one because scammers are kind of prevalent. I'm saying this because this is an issue in the model railroading groups that I belong to. Usually what happens is someone rips photos from a sold listing on eBay, and unfortunately some people don't use Google reverse image search and they get scammed. The best way to know if it's a scam is if the person you're buying from only accepts PayPal friends and family, or they can't write their name and date on a piece of paper and put it next to what's being sold. But sometimes Facebook Marketplace does have local pickup, so that works too. Just make sure you do the exchange at a local game store if possible. Then finally, one of the best places to get used miniatures is Troll Trader. Hashtag not sponsored. Troll Trader is honestly a really great website to pick up used miniatures, since that's all it really is, a used miniatures website. You can find pretty much any Warhammer miniature on there, including Forge World. The way Troll Trader prices their stuff is judged on how well the miniature is painted. Some minis might be way below retail, while others are well above it. There were many times where I've thought about pulling the trigger on Troll Trader because the deals are just so good. Sisters of Silence and other overpriced miniatures for cheap? Sign me the f up. But most if not all the minis on Troll Trader are going to be either assembled, primed, or fully painted, so that also affects the price of the miniature. But it's cheap Warhammer, so there's honestly no reason to complain. I myself, after making this video, see a few items that are catching my fancy, but like clockwork, model train I wanted that is stupidly rare went up for sale, so I chose the model train. Because honestly, model trains will retain their value more than the Warhammer ever will, unfortunately. I should also mention that Troll Trader is priced in British pounds, but converting to dollars, for what you're getting, it's honestly worth it, along with there also being flat shipping to the United States. So even though they are used miniatures, it's still honestly cheaper than buying brand new, especially if you're on a tight budget. But if you do buy some used miniatures you want from any of the places I mentioned in the video, what do you do next? Well, if they're painted and you don't like the paint job, chuck them in 91% isopropyl alcohol, simple green, purple power, or an ultrasonic cleaner if you have one. Then scrub them with an old toothbrush if it's a plastic or metal miniature. You can leave them in the alcohol or whatever cleaning solution you're using for a few hours and then the paint should come right off. If it's a resin miniature, you're gonna have to scrub it every 10 to 20 minutes because if you leave it in any of these cleaning solutions for too long, especially isopropyl alcohol, it will turn into rubber. Then after you've cleaned it, just prime it and paint away. Also, even if the mini wasn't already painted but assembled, just clean it anyways with soapy water. But yeah, that's how you can get into Warhammer on a budget. So support your local game store and watch the internet like a vulture. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget all the basic YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and maybe become a channel member too if you want to help this elaborate post of a channel, because I need to feed the Warhammer and model train addiction. But I have to go make more terrible financial decisions, so I'll see you all in the next video, and remember, being poor is a choice.